Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm really bad at intros, so let's move past that. Today I'm going to be reviewing a book called People Like Her by Ellery Lloyd. Ellery Lloyd is actually a pen name, pseudonym for a husband and wife writing team, and I think this is their only book. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I looked it up and this is all I could really find, so I think this is their only book. I'm going to do a spoiler-free summary and a review, and I will warn when I get to the part where I have some spoilers in my review, so let's get into the summary. Okay, I feel like a lot happened in this book, but I also feel like not that much happened, if that makes sense. Basically, this book follows a woman named Emmy Jackson and her husband and two kids, Coco and Bear. Emmy Jackson is sort of one of those Instagram moms who is Instagram famous for mom-related content. Of course, part of her content is showcasing her beautiful family, her life, all of the ups and downs of motherhood, and her account is called Mama Bear because she bears her soul and bears the truth about motherhood. The book follows some of the behind the scenes aspects of being a content creator of that large of a platform, and how honestly a lot of it is just smoke and mirrors. This really probably isn't that much of a surprise for people who have been on social media for a while, that a lot of these accounts are, you know, not the most truthful, realistic, or accurate, but of course it also follows a lot of the really more dangerous and insidious aspects of social media. One of these is that they actually have a stalker. The book itself has 3 different viewpoints, so they are all written in the first person, but it has Dan's point of view, her husband, Emmy's point of view, and a point of view that we're unaware of until pretty late in the book that is some unidentified stalker or superfan who seems to be following them. Of course, we learn more about this stalker as the book goes on, including what their real intentions are. Throughout the story, it chronicles just the behind the scenes of this kind of social media life. It also follows a lot of the inner turmoil that both of the main characters have regarding choosing this as a profession and a source of income. Especially the husband, Dan, seems to express a lot of reservations regarding having his kids and his family online, which is honestly super understandable. While the main character, Emmy, seems to be able to create a lot of excuses as to why this is a good idea, I believe she also has her own reservations and definitely wants to transition out of social media and get into more traditional forms of entertainment. So they've already got this sort of marital conflict that's going on because Emmy is the source of all of their income. Dan, who is a writer, hasn't written a book in about 8 years, so while he doesn't approve of their source of income, there isn't really another stream. And it's a really weird and interesting marital conflict between these characters. Then throw in the mix that they have a 3 just turned 4-year-old, I guess, and a newborn baby. It becomes just a really stressful and chaotic environment. You can tell there's a lot of stress in their marriage, and to just add on top of that, this account shows up with photos of their daughter. So somebody breaks into their house, steals Emmy's computer with all of her like Mama Bear info, but as well as like personal photos that she has not posted online, and this account shows up with photos of their daughter. This is described as a thriller, but there's also a little bit of a mystery component where you're wondering who this stalker is, who the person is with this other account with photos of Coco. There are a lot of mystery components going on, but I would say up until the last third of the book, or even fourth of the book, it really doesn't read like a thriller. I'm not going to get into the ending because I don't want to give it away. If you are interested in reading it, it would be a real shame for me to give it away, but I am going to start my review now because there's not much else to summarize. As I said, this book does not really read like a thriller until probably the last third of the book. Up until that, it is honestly such a slow burn. It's not a gradual crescendo. It is just honestly pretty inane for the first third of the book. Even when you're introduced to the potential stalker's point of view, it still doesn't seem that sinister. It seems relatively benign considering how out there their lives are, and it doesn't really feel like anything horrible is going to happen until you get pretty far in the book. So I will say that it's hard to find it thrilling or scary until it's pretty far along. So I think that it's maybe more of a mystery thriller hybrid, because to me it read a little bit more like a mystery. I was wondering who the stalker was, but it wasn't necessarily a thriller until about the last third. So that's something to keep in mind. So here's the thing. Every last character in this book, and I mean every last character, save for the children, is a terrible person. They really write the flaws into these characters with very few redeeming qualities. And I think that it's painting what I can only describe as a scathing portrait of social media. And I don't necessarily disagree, but I do think that it would have benefited the story a little bit more to give these characters a little bit more in terms of redeeming qualities. I have a lot of the same reservations that Dan expresses in the book. I don't think Dan's reservations actually stem from Emmy's chosen career. I think that they really stem more from his own dissatisfaction with his writing career and how he's been sort of unable to provide for his family, to write more books. That's what drives a lot of his feelings regarding Emmy's career. I think it's a little bit more in the realm of resentment, and without giving anything away, I think that my thoughts on that are kind of confirmed in the ending. If you read it, you'll know what I mean. If you've read it, you already know what I mean. I think for a lot of the book, part of what's maybe a little bit more sinister or insidious about it is not necessarily Stalker herself, but Emmy's morality, and a lot of it is very questionable. And I think that that's a little bit more of an insidious part of the story, which is how her morality kind of slips away slowly and slowly regarding her family. Of course, it's not just Emmy. Honestly, Dan allows it. Dan goes along with it as well. And it's every single character. It even talks about Emmy's childhood friend Polly, who we're meant to feel bad for, but frankly, she does something terrible too by reporting a story about Emmy to the media. I just think every character in this book is morally bankrupt. They are just all terrible people. So that being said, it's a little bit hard to root for them. I think the only thing that keeps me rooting for them is the safety of their children, as far as Emmy and Dan are concerned. I just want to make sure their children are safe regarding the stalkers, so that's the kind of only reason I honestly finished the book. There are redeeming qualities to the book itself. I think this is a really interesting and unique story. It's definitely a thriller for the modern age. I think if you're a parent, it'll especially hit really hard. This brings me to the harder parts of the book to discuss. I'm not normally a person who thinks that everything should have a trigger warning, but this book, I think there could at least be some sort of a mention about how it deals with fertility issues, but more importantly, how it deals with the safety of children. This is the part where I'm going to be discussing the ending and some spoilers, so if you haven't read it, please skip the next minute or two or just stop watching this video. I think that this was a very difficult book to read, being only a few months postpartum. In the book, Emmy has an infant. He's, I think, 6 or 8 weeks old. I think he's 8 weeks old. Part of the reason the stalker wants to get Emmy is because her granddaughter died sort of from the advice of Mama Bear. Her daughter asked Mama Bear for advice on co-sleeping, and she said go ahead with it. And so this granddaughter died, small baby died while co-sleeping. If you are a parent of a baby, this is going to be a really hard portion for you to read because they describe it in a lot of detail. And I felt like there could have been just some sort of indication that there was going to be a detailed description of infants dying. Sorry, but for somebody who was holding a 3.5-month-old baby while reading this, I found it deeply disturbing, especially considering up until pretty late in the book, it wasn't that intensely scary. And so to have it kind of go from this to this was a lot to handle. I found it really emotional. I actually broke down and cried at the description because I found it so upsetting. I only finished the book. I would have stopped reading, but I had to finish the book to make sure that Emmy's infant ends up okay. This is the spoiler, he does end up okay, but there's a moment in time where they make it seem like he is dead, and it is horrifying description. And they do describe the other infant dying. So there is a lot of descriptions of babies dying. If you are in the throes of postpartum and you have your own infant, just don't read it. Honestly, don't read it. Especially with your postpartum hormones, it's going to be really, really troubling. I cried twice at both of those descriptions. So what happens is the stalker ends up getting Emmy in this rural house out in the middle of nowhere. She was a nurse, so she has drugs. She keeps Emmy passed out and has Bear just lay in her arms for like 72 hours. Her plan is that she's just going to let Bear cry and cry and starve until he dies. And then Emmy will wake up and feel the same pain that her daughter felt when she woke up from co-sleeping and her baby was not breathing. This is truly one of the most sadistic things I've ever read, I've ever heard of. It was so troubling to read and so bizarre because a lot of the rest of the book was dealing with their marital problems, and the stalker was there, but it wasn't like this super looming component. It seems more like maybe obsessed fan, maybe something else. I am so naive. I legitimately thought that the stalker woman was going to like snatch her daughter Coco and just give her some drugs to make her pass out for a bit, just to give them a scare. Like, I didn't think that she intended to harm one of their children, and I guess I'm just so naive that I don't know why, but I was like, no, like this isn't that kind of book. It hasn't been that kind of book so far. Oh my gosh, it's that kind of book. And it went from 0 to like 120. Spoilers are done, but I'm just gonna add this trigger warning. If you're pregnant, if you are trying to get pregnant, if you're dealing with fertility issues, if you have a baby under 6 months old, or if you are just really sensitive to descriptions of violence involving children, descriptions of children being injured, don't read this book. Please don't read this book. Back to the rest of the review. I just needed to get it off of my chest that this absolutely needed to have some indication of how dark it is, because it is not that way through majority of the book. Majority of the book deals with, kind of the moral corruption that Emmy and Dan face as a result of their lifestyle. I found the look into Emmy's moral backsliding, I guess, pretty interesting. The issue with watching her morality slip and slip away is that we didn't really get to know her beforehand, and there just weren't enough memories and flashbacks of her beforehand to indicate that this is really that different, that she was a better person at any point in time. And in fact, her husband Dan even reminisces on when they first met and talks about how she had a boyfriend at the time that she didn't talk about. There are a lot of components that make you just realize that she's probably always been a little bit of an unfeeling narcissist. I don't know, it just seems kind of like it would be more interesting to chronicle someone's moral downfall if they had some sort of code of ethics beforehand, but it kind of seems like her code of ethics was shaky to begin with, so maybe that's why she decided this was an okay idea for her family. You know, I'm sorry, it just didn't show enough redeeming qualities for me to care a lot about these characters. And I would just say, I'm sorry, I would skip this one. I don't know. The characters were unlikable. There were huge issues with pacing. It was a tame mystery for 2/3 of the book, and for the last third it was a horror thriller. So it just felt like it read a little bit off. That's just my opinion. Yeah, I think I would give it like 2 out of 5 because it was still an interesting concept. I did finish the book, but I'm definitely never going to read it again. I'm probably not going to recommend it. So yeah, I think it's like a 2 out of 5. But you know, everybody likes different things. So please let me know in the comments below if you have read this book, if you enjoyed it, or if you're interested in reading it. I would definitely like to hear that. I like hearing people with different points of view. But that's just it for my thoughts. Sorry, this was a little bit ranty. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later.